Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Premier. Last Thursday, we learned that the Sudbury Police Services Board has contacted the Ontario Civilian Police Commission to seek guidance. Premier, we've asked the Commission for an investigation into the alleged bribery. Shouldn't you be doing the same? Shouldn't you be asking the Ontario Civilian Police Commission to conduct an investigation into the actions of Jerry Lougheed Jr.? Premier, why have you fallen silent on Mr. Lougheed's inappropriate behaviour and alleged bribery?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I have said many times in this House, there is an investigation ongoing. It is an investigation that's taking place outside of this House. And, Mr. Speaker, I would say to the member opposite that the Police Services Board is responsible for the provision of adequate and effective police services in their municipalities, Mr. Speaker, and police services boards are not directed by me or by this House, Mr. Speaker. So we need to let the Police Services Board take actions as it sees fit, and we need to let the investigation unfold outside this legislature, which is where it's appropriate, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Supplementary.
And to the Premier, Mr. Speaker. The Ontario Civilian Police Commission has said that all Police Service Board members have an obligation to respect and uphold the law. Jerry Lougheed Jr. has not apparently lived up to his obligations as chair of the Sudbury Police Services Board. I think many of us, all of us, can agree with that. So much so that his colleagues on the board are now distancing themselves from him. And unlike the Premier, they don't want to be dragged down with him when he falls. So, Premier, by order in Council, you have the power to revoke Mr. Lougheed's appointment.
Order,
Why
please.
won't you remove him from the Sudbury Police Services Board until the OPP investigations are concluded?
Mr. Speaker, unlike the member opposite, I actually trust the system. I trust the people who are part of the Police Services Board, Mr. Speaker. I trust the people who are undertaking the investigation that is taking place outside of this House, Mr. Speaker. And, you know, I would just go back to that initial comment. I think it's very important that we trust the people who have been put in positions who have responsibilities, Mr. Speaker, that are not directed by the politics of what goes on in this House. Those investigations are happening outside. The Police Services Board will make its decision based on its very good capacity to do so, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Final supplementary.
And to the Premier. Premier, the Commission has said board members should act with the highest levels of honesty and integrity. It should not take criminal charges or convictions to prove Mr. Lougheed Jr. fell below that standard, Premier. It simply takes listening to Mr. Olivier's recordings. So when will you demonstrate integrity and remove Mr. Lougheed Jr. from the board?
Premier.
Attorney General.
Attorney General.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Police Service Board are responsible.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Police Service Board is
Duty, Police Service Board generally determine objective and priority with respect to police service in their jurisdiction. So, about the question that was raised by the Leader of the Opposition, I understand that the Sudbury Police Service Board has discussed this matter and have contacted the Ontario Civilian Police Commission. So they share their finding, and the OCPC share their finding and comments from community, and the OCPC is authorized under Section 25 of the Police Service Act to investigate, inquire into, and report on the conduct of a member of the Police Service Board if requested. Thank you very much.
Thank you. New question.
Again, to the Leader of the Opposition Speaker. Premier, over and over again, you have claimed that the investigation into Jerry Lougheed Jr. and Pat Sabera was independent and not taking place in this House, and you've said it again today a couple of times. Yet, when asked about possible OPP charges against Pat Sabera, on at least 5 occasions now, you have said, quote, "We don't expect it to happen," end of quote. Premier, why are you trying to influence the OPP investigation by saying that you don't think the OPP will lay charges?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, I will say again that I take this matter very seriously, Mr. Speaker, that the investigation is happening outside of this House, Mr. Speaker, and I have been clear that we need to let that investigation unfold, Mr. Speaker. I would say respectfully to the member opposite, the fact that he stands up and asks question after question suggests that he would like to investigate the process, investigate the matter in this House, Mr. Speaker. I think that's very inappropriate when he knows full well that the investigation is happening independent of the legislature, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary?
Premier, when asked about former Deputy Education Minister Ben Levins, you said, "This is a case that is before the courts. I cannot comment on any of the aspects of the case," end of quote. When asked about the OPP investigation into deleted gas plant documents, you said, quote, "Unfortunately, I'm not able to comment further." Premier, why do you now feel that it is acceptable for you to comment on this particular OPP investigation into the bribery scandal?
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it is beyond rich, Mr. Speaker, that the member opposite and, quite frankly, both parties, Mr. Speaker, want commentary on every single aspect of this matter, Mr. Speaker. I have said over and over again that this investigation is happening outside of this House, Mr. Speaker, and
Member from Renfrew, come to order. Second time.
I made a statement 2 Fridays ago about my position, Mr. Speaker. I said what I believed was the case, Mr. Speaker, and I will stand by that. But the investigation is happening outside of this House, not, Mr. Speaker, in this legislature during question period.
Thank you. Final supplementary.
Premier, as the Chief Executive of this province, your words hold a lot of weight, and your actions even more so. It's unethical for you to share your thoughts with law enforcement officials about how you expect their independent investigation to play out. Premier, when you said you didn't expect charges against Pat Severa, you crossed the line. And so I ask you, why did you feel it was appropriate to deviate from your standard no-comment position and actually profess an opinion on whether charges will be laid against your Deputy Chief of Staff? Why is this criminal investigation any different than any of the others?
She's instructed.
Mr. Speaker, again, the member opposite and his colleagues have asked questions over and over again to which they claim they want answers, Mr. Speaker. I have done my utmost to say what I believe, Mr. Speaker, to talk about my position, Mr. Speaker, and to then say, and I will say this repeatedly, there's an investigation going on, Mr. Speaker. It's happening outside of this House. It is not the business of this legislature to undertake that investigation. It is happening independent of this legislature, Mr. Speaker, and I think the member opposite knows that, and yet he continues to ask questions, Mr. Speaker, that suggest that he's not respecting the fact that this investigation is happening outside the legislature.
Thank you. Any questions? The leader of the third party.